Will a pair of former number one overall picks continue to ball out for the Detroit Tigers this spring? We'll talk about that, the impact it has on the roster, and so much more, all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Thursday, March 13th, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Happy March 13th, 313 day. You know, shout out the city of Detroit, baby, for being the best and for also giving us this beautiful baseball team that we can just drive ourselves nuts over, really, year in and year out. I know I speak for myself when I say that. The Tigers win 5-1 on Wednesday afternoon against the Tampa Bay Rays. It's really getting to the point now where a large portion of the fan base is starting to, I don't necessarily want to use the word overreact because I think some of it's justified and I'm definitely leaning into it as well. So I feel like that would be somewhat hypocritical. But we're getting to the point where like everyone is on the wave of Mize and Torque. And as I said in the cold open, those are our former number one. Well, shout out Matt Anderson, the OG Tigers number one overall pick. Doing so, I went down this rabbit hole, I feel like a few months ago, of like what Matt Anderson was up to now, and he's got some really nice job and is doing well for himself. I forget what it is. Shout out what is that, 97, 98? One of those 2 years. He was the number one overall pick for the Tigers. Before Casey Mize, he was the Tigers' only number one overall pick in franchise history. Obviously, he is not playing. I'll get back on track here. Mize and Torkelson have both had fantastic springs, and on Wednesday, that was still the case. And I think that there were some good and bad to take out of both. Mize goes 3 1/3, 1 hit, no earned runs, 3 walks, and 4 strikeouts. That keeps his ERA at 0.00 in spring training. Has not allowed an earned run yet. Torkelson goes 2 for 3 with 4 RBIs and a home run. The other hit being a line drive single to left field that scored 2. He's now hitting .310 with an OPS over 1,000 in spring training. Now, I think that this outing, there was good and bad to take out of it. Bad's even like way too dramatic. I think that there were just positives and negatives, right? The 3 walks is obviously a high number. His pitch count was over 70 when he got pulled in the game. And that, through 3 1/3 innings is obviously not the most efficient outing that you can put together. That being said, he was missing by like centimeters, especially in the first inning. You go look at some of the calls that led to walks being drawn. I mean, you're talking about on the black, and I don't know if nobody challenged or if I know some of the pitchers are like, we're not going to use the challenge system in spring training because we want to prepare for the regular season when we're not going to have that. So maybe Mize, he's a very competitive dude. That may be him. But regardless, I think that the command being just that much off isn't the end of the world to me. It's not like he was missing his spot by like feet at a time. He was barely missing in a lot of those instances. Only 1 hit against, didn't give up a lot of hard contact, and was just getting a lot of swings and misses again. And I think that I'm at a point now where like I completely trust the stuff, and I think he's, dare I say, a lock for the rotation at this point. I don't think that he's going anywhere, which is so funny because less than a week ago, my opinion of that was different. But I don't know how you can look at what he is doing on the mound and the stuff that he is offering and not bring him up north with you. He has to be in the rotation. 90-mile-an-hour splitter, an 89-mile-an-hour slider that he was throwing pretty often in this game. And the fastball was touching 97 like multiple times, not just a one-off instance. He had 4 swings and misses on the fastball alone, 12 total. And again, just over 3 innings of work is a fantastic number. The splitter, the command of the splitter was all over the place in this one, but he also didn't throw it a ton. He was very fastball slider oriented. Now, 51 of his 70 pitches were one of those two, were either four-seam fastballs or sliders. And I am not exaggerating when I say that this was comfortably the best slider I have ever seen Casey Mize throw in my life. Legitimately. And there were times when it wasn't commanded very well. There were times when in the first 2 innings, especially, where he was kind of all over the place with it or wasn't able to hit his spots. And he was missing those by quite a lot. And that's where he was getting behind in some of these counts, which I think is something that needs to be addressed. You need to be consistent. But in the 3rd inning specifically, go watch the 3rd inning. That is some of the best you'll see. Slider low and away, completely called strike not offered, then followed up by a splitter low and away, swung on and missed. Fastballs up in the zone because they're 97, and he has the velocity to bully people like that now in the upper half of the zone with his fastball, which he never did in his major league career, especially pre-injury. And got one, the sword he got, it was a 3rd strike. I'm trying to remember which batter it was. Not important, but it was in the 3rd inning. I'm sure you can find it. It was the 3rd and final strike in an at-bat. 3rd and final, strike in an at-bat, swinging, and it was low and in, aiming for that back leg to a lefty, and just absolutely tied him in knots. Again, the stuff is now there, and that's super encouraging because it looks really good. It's far better than I expected it to look going into spring training. And it's been like that for most of spring training. Now, it's about making sure he has command of those and not having, 70 pitches through 3 innings. And it's about being able to replicate that and put up that level of just, I guess, stuff on a consistent basis. And those things are not a reason to not be in the rotation. It was kind of winded. The stuff is too good for him to not be in the rotation, is my point. And I fully expect him to be. Let's talk about torque, and we'll talk about some bullpen battles and some we kind of threw the A team out there in the bullpen in this spring training game. So I want to talk about that. Then we'll break down a few more things out of Lakeland. We'll do all of that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our new friends over at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track your accounts, investments, and spendings all in one place. So you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smaller and I save much more. They also have all-in-one convenience. So instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. You only need one app, and that is Monarch Money. Managing money with your partner is also smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off of your first year. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We, of course, will be back tomorrow recapping more Detroit Tigers baseball. The Tigers play the New York Yankees. I don't think this game is going to be televised. I think it's just a radio game. So we will talk about any big news that happens from camp. And then I promise we will get back to our player preview series as well. We got some big names here still left to discuss. Want to talk about Torque. Had a absolute laser beam of a home run in this game. Also faced Alex Faedo, who threw him a 3-0 fastball down the middle, and he just deposited it. Hard line drive into left field for a nice single that got 2 RBIs. That was 2 on, 2 out. And I know that it's spring training and it's far different than, regular season environment and whatnot. But really nice to see with his struggles in clutch and high leverage situations to just come through in a moment like that period is nice, whether it's spring training or not. The home run was beautiful. That was a fastball on the outer half of the plate. Went out, not only hit it, but was able to make such good contact that, besides the fact that it went like 106 miles an hour off the bat, that he sent it to left center field. Like, he got around on that thing and really gave it a ride. Beautiful. I'm not sure if he knew it off the bat or not. He definitely knew he made good contact, but I think he might have thought he flew out to the warning track or something, and then the ball just kept carrying. Absolutely smoked it. It is so fascinating how unbelievably different this team looks if Torkelson hits. And I think that there's a micro and a macro evaluation of the Torkelson situation, right? We'll start with micro, and that is what happens for roster decision opening day 2025. If he keeps hitting like this, I have a hard time believing he's not going to be on the opening day roster. I'm going to start with that. On top of that, I think that with Winfield Perez not playing in this game, Parker Meadows being a maybe, Matt Vierling being a no, I have been very adamant that I think Torkelson and Malloy are in competition with each other for this last roster spot. And while I still think in general that is true, if they are back against the wall, meaning if the Tigers are in a situation where all of their, well, not all of, a lot of their starting prominent outfielders are hurt, at least 2 of them. And then on top of that, Winfield Perez is a maybe. And they look around and go, okay, Jahmai Jones can play center field. So he's going to be the center fielder on opening day, with all 3 of those guys being, their status in question. There is a reality in which Malloy and Torkelson both make the roster. That would just be at the expense of one of those other super utility players, i.e., again, Winfield Perez. Possibly, we've talked about Zach McKinstry till we've been blue in the face. Obviously, that's a possibility. I have a hard time believing Andy Ibanez isn't going to make the roster. But, players like that, I think is that there is a chance. It's certainly non-zero. The reason why I haven't talked about that possibility is because I don't think that there is a lot of defensive positional versatility with carrying both of those guys on your roster. But at the end of the day, if both of them are hitting, which Malloy had a beautiful at-bat on Wednesday, righty got a slider low and away and still was able to get around on it and hit it hard to center field for a single. If they are both hitting, they're probably both going to come up north with the team. Again, walking this line is so difficult because I am trying my darndest not to overreact to every at-bat in spring training, because that's just not how I want to evaluate spring training games, certainly. And it also just isn't, that isn't how this works, right? We're not living and dying with every single at-bat in spring training. We have to look bigger picture than just that. But I really do think that This team needs offense. And as long as Malloy isn't an absolute liability in corner outfield, right? In probably right field, because Green was so good in left and isn't a platoon. So unless Malloy is just like unplayably poor defensively and right, it's on the table for both of them to come north. Malloy can play right field when a lefty is on the mound. Carpenter then would still not really play against lefties, which is going to drive people nuts. And the reason why is because Torkelson would then be the DH, because Colt Keith is not a platoon guy, hits well against righties and lefties, or hits the same, I should say, against righties and lefties, and is the first baseman, presumably. I also want to say that whether you agree or disagree with everything that I've said so far, this is a fantastic problem to have, and something that when I took over this show 4 years ago, or when I was covering the 2022 team, or when I was watching every game of an 114 loss Detroit Tigers team in 2019, I only could have dreamed of a Tigers team that made the playoffs and then the following year had too much depth to take all of the talent up north. This is a great problem to have. People get hurt. People struggle. We see all the time that like people hit really well in spring training and then fizzle out in the regular season, because the regular season, in case you're unaware, is way more difficult than spring training. As I said yesterday, you got to take all that with a grain of salt. So as you can see, I'm having my own internal dilemma with what to do on all of this and where the roster construction is headed. But at the end of the day, I'm also just enjoying the ride, man. Like that's a beautiful problem to have. All right, let's talk about the rest of these standouts. I want to talk bullpen. I also want to talk about some more roster decisions that were made this week. We will get to that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. If you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts, with each 1 ounce serving having 6 grams of protein, which gives you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a perfect classic favorite as well. So get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. I want that on a t-shirt, for real. I've decided. I want get snacking, get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch on a t-shirt yesterday. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen. Third and final segment here of Locked On Tigers. Just said the name of the show way too many times there. So I think we've talked about the two biggest pieces of Wednesday, and the two big talking points are going to be Mize and Torque, but there was a lot going on in this ball game. One of which, just facing Alex Faedo, just seeing him in a Rays jersey doesn't quite look right to me. I don't know. Maybe it's just the spring training colors and everything going on, but I thought he looked a lot better in the Tigers kit there. But I think that the bullpen is really an under the radar storyline out of this game. The Tigers threw a lot of their A team in terms of their pen. Holton, Vest, Brisky, Foley, Hannafy. Holton looked sharp. Vest gave up a homer. Still think he looked pretty darn good, though. Brisky looked really sharp. Foley, 2 strikeouts. Man, Foley is just taking me on a emotional roller coaster, man. I thought his 2 strikeouts were fantastic. Okay, I think he threw a sinker low and into a right-handed hitter that completely tied him in knots. He swung through it. It got a whiff. I thought it was wonderfully placed and a beautiful at bat. I also think that the first 2 or 3 at bats of the inning were a train wreck. And he was all over the place. The velocity wasn't there. He gave up the hit. It really worried me. And then, like, the end of the inning, he looked sharp. I don't know. He's obviously going to make the team. He'll come up north, obviously, and be a prominent part in the bullpen, I'd imagine. But I stand by, the days of him being like the highest leverage reliever, being the closer. I really think are behind us. And that brings us to the real reason I wanted to talk about the bullpen, which was Brennan Hanafy. Brennan Hanafy has also a 0 ERA this spring training. He went 1 2/3 with 1 hit, no runs, no walks, and 4 strikeouts. He recorded 5 outs in the game. 4 of them were strikeouts. The sinker that he was throwing was as unhittable of a sinker as you will find. A sinker is inherently not a swing and miss pitch. The goal of that two-seam kind of ride bowling ball, as I like to call it, downward action fastball, is to have a hitter not be able to square it up. It's not intended to miss a ton of bats. And there's obviously exceptions throughout the history of baseball of pitchers that have good enough sinkers where they do miss bats. And we've seen Foley even do that at his peak, over the last couple of years. This was ridiculous, though. This was every sinker he threw seemed to be either a swing and miss or a called strike. He threw 13 of them. 8 were either swing and miss strikes or called strikes. 3 whiffs, 5 called strikes. 1 ball fouled off as well on top of that. So 1 pitch got put in play. 1 sinker, I should say, got put in play. And he was throwing it at, this is not a guy that maxes out at, 101 with 3 feet of run, right? He averaged 95 miles an hour, topped out at 96, has a lot of break on it. Don't get me wrong. He was bullying righties. And that's where a lot of his whiffs with that pitch came in this outing. He was just throwing sinkers low and inside to righties. And then he was tunneling it with a slider low and away to righties. That is the exact same pitch until it's about 20, 30 feet from you. Then one of them at 95 comes in toward your kneecaps, and the other one at whatever he's throwing, 80, his slider was at 88 miles an hour, then breaks to the outside and just catches the low and away corner. And they're in the exact same tunnel until, again, they're almost at home plate. Absolute masterclass. And the reason I bring this up, and I'm so passionate about this, and I am objectively overreacting to one spring training outing, is because I am going to have an awfully hard time, if he keeps looking like that, not bringing him up north too. Which I think changes the conversation surrounding Kenta Maeda again, with Mize and Hanafy looking how they have lately, right? One bullpen spot, 1 rotation spot. Obviously, that's going to put a light on Job for that rotation spot and where they put Maeda and whatnot and who they're able to bring up north. Again, these are great problems to have, but they are really, really, really difficult decisions. And that's awesome. I love difficult decisions on opening day rosters. Love it. Because that means that in May, when 3 guys hit the injured list in one series and we're all, crying in pain, that a major league caliber player is going to get called up to replace them. And that's something this team has not had in ages. Literally ages. He looked fantastic. Outside of that, a lot of the kids played in this game yet again. I think that that's awesome that they're playing so much. I think that there is something kind of in mind for the amount of playing time they're going to get over the weekend. We also saw another round of cuts from this. Again, cuts, I say in quotes. These guys aren't off the, out of the organization. However, Thyron Lorenzo, unfortunately, has been reassigned to minor league camp along with Hao Yu Lee. That is technically, I believe, the third round of opening day cuts. So the Tigers major league camp is now at 49 players. So there's still plenty of, obviously, still a ton of players there. Like there's still even more people than there are 40-man roster spots, nonetheless 26-man roster spots. So we will see what happens. I mean, these guys weren't going to make the team out of camp anyway, but it was cool to see them like last as long as they did. If you're looking for like a silver lining or a consolation prize, like it's cool to see Lorenzo get as many at-bats as he did. And last in Major League Camp for as long as he did. Same with Hao Yu Lee, especially early in spring training, got a ton of opportunities and a ton of hype surrounding him. Just didn't hit very well, which is fine. He has plenty of time. He'll go down, be in AAA this year, and hopefully be kind of in the next wave of youth that comes up to the Tigers over the next 2 seasons. Only other thing I want to bring up is injury updates and Miguel Cabrera being at camp. Injury updates, Parker Meadows. He says he's still optimistic that he can be ready by the start of the season, but they have not upticked his workload in quite some time. And we are, as you're listening to this on Thursday, 2 weeks to the day away from opening day, which means we're like a week and a half from them leaving Lakeland. I am getting much more pessimistic about this, and I think they're leaving a 40-man roster spot open for Jahmai Jones if Parker Meadows can't go. I don't think it'll be like a long thing. I don't think Parker's going to be out for like, the first 2 months of the season or anything like that. But as far as, maybe the first week or so of the regular season, I have a hard time believing he's going to be, in center field on opening day based on the fact that he is not playing spring training games with a week and a half left of spring training. Maybe I'm just being pessimistic. We'll see. And then Winfield Perez, that kind of concerning, was told the coaching staff and AJ directly told the media that he was going to play on Wednesday, that Winfield Perez was going to play on Wednesday, and he did not. And we haven't got a follow-up explanation for that, at least at the time of this recording. So we'll keep an eye on that situation as well. Again, if that goes south too, that really opens up the door for a Malloy and Torkelson opening day roster with both of them on it. But we'll see how that plays out. Miguel Cabrera in camp, always a beauty. See the big fella. Tigers even tweeted out he's in the best shape of his life, carrying the torch and the tradition of that report that we got every year for about the last 8 years of his career, maybe. Really, I think the best shape of his life thing started in 2016 because he was hurt so much throughout the 2015 season. So yeah, about 6, 7, 8 years probably of his career. We got that about every spring. AJ talked about how cool it was to have him around. When Torkelson hit the homer, Miggy went over and kind of put his arm, on his shoulder and talked to him and told him nice swing and whatnot. I don't know. Like it's just very cool to see him, even in the small role that he has. He's not like a prominent part of the coaching staff or the front office or anything, but just to see him as kind of a type of ambassador for this team is really a cool thing. And one of the quotes out of camp was just like, he loves being a Tiger. And that means something for one of the greatest players to ever wear the Old English D. So nice to see the big fella back in camp. And I think that's pretty much all I got today. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We, of course, will be back tomorrow, recapping more baseball and getting back on track with our player preview series. I appreciate you all so much. After us, make Locked On Fantasy Baseball your second listen. Dominic Martino and Matthew O'Neill, MLB fantasy draft experts, and I can't wait. because fantasy baseball is here, and you can be the most informed fan and set yourself up for a league win by finding Locked On Fantasy Baseball on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope, and I'll catch y'all tomorrow, baby. Go Tigers.